Imagine logging into your banking portal to make your monthly car payment, only to find that for the first time in 6 grueling years, the balance reads exactly 0. Not pending, not overdue, completely paid, cleared, and done. Most people instinctively refresh the browser page just to verify that the numbers are real, immediately experiencing an intense wave of relief that alters their entire psychological mood for the rest of the day. But here is the structural secret that mainstream financial institutions desperately hide from you. The exact moment you pay off that vehicle is not actually the win. The true financial victory is determined entirely by what you choose to execute during the 30 days immediately following that final payment, and the reality is that most consumers completely blow it. Consider 2 professionals living in the exact same city, earning identical salaries and working the same type of corporate job. Both just wrote their very last check to their auto lenders. One treats this milestone as a finish line, celebrates the extra cash flow for a week, and ultimately ends up right back on the debt treadmill. The other treats it like a starting gun, where both of these individuals land 20 years from now looks absolutely nothing alike. And the massive chasm separating them isn't driven by luck or talent, it is a single choice made in a single month left to compound for decades. Before we break down the exact asset transition that occurs after you eliminate that liability, we need to analyze the staggering reality of how deeply the modern consumer is buried in automobile debt. The macro scale of this problem is vital to understanding exactly why hitting a 0 balance is such a monumental pivot point for your net worth. Collectively, drivers owe a historic, record-shattering $1.8 trillion in active auto loan debt. That figure has officially edged past the nation's total outstanding student loan debt, cementing car payments as the single defining debt structure of modern economic life, surpassing credit cards and ranking second only to mortgages. Right now, nearly 100 million people are carrying an active vehicle loan, with the average new car payment climbing past a brutal $800 every single month. To be clear, that $800 check isn't financing a luxury sports car. That is the baseline average for a standard vehicle. It's purchased by an ordinary worker on a loan term that now stretches across a historic 69 months. At this rate, financial institutions should simply rebrand vehicle financing as a second mortgage and skip the part where we pretend the contract will ever actually end. Even worse, 1 out of every 5 new car buyers is actively signing an 84-month contract, locking themselves into 7 full years of automated payments. The psychology behind this trap is carefully engineered inside the dealership's finance office. The moment you sit across from the manager, they pull up a grid displaying multiple long-term loan structures and ask one specific, toxic question: what monthly payment works best for your budget? They intentionally avoid asking how much you actually want to spend on the asset, and they completely bury the total lifetime cost of the contract. They do this because they know that if they can get you to fixate entirely on a single monthly number, you will sign your name to almost any terms. Consequently, the average amount financed has ballooned to roughly $45,000 under a standard 69-month term. You will ultimately pay back over $51,000 for a rapidly depreciating machine that will be worth a mere fraction of that amount by the time you hold the title. And if your credit score isn't absolutely flawless, you face predatory interest rates escalating up to 18%, or 19% on an asset that loses value the second you drive it off the lot. The overarching metric that reframes this entire dynamic is that the average consumer will surrender approximately $500,000 purely to vehicle purchases over their working lifetime. Transportation has evolved into the second largest household expenditure, draining more capital than food or direct health care. We have become a culture that aggressively prioritizes the luxury of getting somewhere over almost everything that happens once we actually arrive at the destination. This is why when your auto loan finally hits absolute 0, when the lender is off your back and the title is securely in your hands, you have just successfully unlocked the largest recurring monthly expense that the average consumer will ever have the opportunity to eliminate. The critical question is what you choose to do with that freed up capital. Spoiler alert, the vast majority of people instantly hand that money straight back to the financial system. This doesn't happen because They are bad at mathematics. It happens because no one has ever broken down the true compounding value of that cash flow. Let's run the real numbers on what a consistent $700 monthly payment is actually worth over a lifetime. Because once you process this math, it becomes genuinely impossible to view a car loan the same way again. Historically, through every single market crash, economic recession, and systemic calamity over the past century, the S&P 500 index has delivered an average annual return of roughly 10%. While the past is never an absolute guarantee of future performance, look what happens if you redirect that exact $700 car, its payment away from a depreciating vehicle and route it directly into a basic index fund. After just 5 years of automated investing, your account scales to over $54,000. By year 10, that balance hits a massive $143,000. Out of that total, you only contributed $84,000 of your own principal, meaning the asset market handed you an extra $59,000 in pure wealth just for having the discipline to show up. If you have ever audited your savings at the end of a highly disciplined month-to-month where you cooked at home, skipped luxury shopping, said no to expensive social events, and wondered why your net worth still isn't moving, this is your answer. Your auto loan is the silent structural leak in the bottom of your financial bucket that makes the entire discipline of saving feel it's completely pointless. By year 20 of maintaining that disciplined approach, your investment portfolio hits a staggering $531,000 out of that $500,000 balance. Your actual cash contributions only amounted to $168,000. The remaining $363,000 is pure, an uninterrupted market growth more than double the total amount of money you physically put into the account. If you let that exact same $700 a month cycle compound for 30 years, the final number scales to an unbelievable $1.58 million. Let that sink in for a moment. $1.58 million. Over 3 decades, your out-of-pocket contributions totaled $252,000. The asset market generated the other $1.33 million. You didn't have to work overtime to earn that $1.33 million. You simply had the absolute discipline not to interrupt its compounding growth. This reveals the true tragedy of modern vehicle consumerism. A persistent car payment isn't just costing you $800 a month today, it's costing you $1.33 million in lifetime wealth. And that is a metric no dealership will ever print on a window sticker? Around year 8 of this strategy, an incredible mathematical threshold is crossed. Your annual market returns officially exceed your cash contributions. The market begins depositing more wealth into your account per year than you do. God. The final decade of compounding alone accounts for a massive 66% of your total lifetime wealth. Every single year you delay starting doesn't just cost you 12 months of baseline contributions, it costs you the absolute most lucrative portion of your ending balance. To put this into perspective, imagine 2 individuals of the exact same age, earning the same income, who both drive vehicles their entire lives. Person A operates on the standard loop. The moment a car loan ends, they immediately sign a contract for a new vehicle, maintaining a permanent debt payment forever. Person B pays off their initial vehicle, continues driving it, and seamlessly invests $500 of that freed up monthly cash flow into a low-cost index fund. After 30 years, Person B commands a massive $1.1 million liquid fortune purely from that single operational pivot. Person A possesses 0. They had identical salaries and drove the exact same caliber of cars. Yet a massive $1.1 million wealth gap was created not by outturning the other person, but simply by refusing to hand that cash flow straight back to a commercial lender every single time. What mainstream financial content completely ignores is that the compounding impact of debt isn't exclusively financial, it is deeply neurological. We have all experienced that sudden wakefulness at 2 a.m. on a random Thursday night. You weren't consciously stressed about anything specific when you went to bed, but your brain automatically boots up and begins running calculations anyway. You find yourself projecting how much liquid cash will remain in your checking account when the automated auto draft hits. It's verifying if the transfer timing aligns perfectly, and stressing over what happens if an unexpected emergency occurs. It isn't a random bout of anxiety. That is, consumer debt actively occupying valuable mental real estate that you never consciously consented to give away. A landmark study published by the National Academy of Sciences, PNAs, tracked individuals who received unexpected debt relief. To measure the exact cognitive aftermath, the researchers discovered that completely eliminating debt accelerated cognitive performance by a staggering 1/4 of a standard deviation, slashed baseline anxiety metrics by 11%, and instantly decreased short-term impulse thinking by 10%. The most counterintuitive revelation of the entire study was that the sheer number of individual debt accounts mattered significantly more than the total dollar amount owed. Carrying 5 separate $1,000 debts inflicts far more cognitive damage than managing a single $5,000 balance. Each distinct liability forces your brain to run a constant background microprocess that consumes vital cognitive energy, whether you are actively thinking about it or not. The scientists compared this chronic mental drain to operating on a severe night of lost sleep. That 2 a.m. financial arithmetic session isn't an eccentric personality quirk. It is a measurable, exhausting cognitive tax inflicted on every single human being carrying consumer debt, and it vanishes the exact moment the debt does. The American Psychological Association has ranked money as the absolute #1 stressor in the country for every single consecutive year they have measured the metric, with 73% of citizens confirming it as their primary source of daily friction. Consequently, when a vehicle loan finally disappears, what consumers describe isn't merely a sigh of relief, it is a profound return to mental clarity. The persistent background hum of that monthly obligation finally goes dead silent, and superior life decisions begin to follow. Almost automatically, because the individual finally reclaimed their cognitive bandwidth. But here's the brutal truth. The vast majority of consumers only get to experience that profound mental clarity for about 3 months before a local dealership successfully wins it back. The systemic trap waiting for you on the other side of your final payment is incredibly dangerous because it doesn't look like a trap at all. It masquerades as total freedom. It's the exact month your auto loan terminates. You suddenly find yourself with $800 more sitting in your checking account than you had the previous month. That capital doesn't land in your account with a label screaming wealth-building asset. It simply sits there looking like welcome breathing room. Nobel Prize-winning economist Richard Thaler mathematically proved this human flaw through a concept known as mental accounting. Human beings treat capital entirely differently based on the arbitrary mental category they assign it to. That newly freed $800 doesn't automatically root itself into your long-term wealth bucket. It defaults directly into your available income category, where it is instantly exposed to lifestyle creep. Available income is always quietly devoured by slightly more expensive dinners, a tech upgrade you've been putting off, or an array of premium streaming subscriptions that you completely forget to cancel. It is the psychological equivalent of having a prison sentence commuted, only to immediately volunteer to walk back inside because the cafeteria food was consistent, and then the subtle dissatisfaction with your current vehicle begins to creep in. You find yourself sitting at a red light, and your eyes involuntarily drift to the facelifted newer model idling in the lane next to you. The digital screen inside your own dashboard suddenly looks like a relic from a completely different technological era. Your heated seats only feature a basic on and off switch instead of 3 customizable zones. Worse, you start noticing a faint, rhythmic rattle whenever you cross 65 miles per hour on the highway. Sound you've been casually explaining away to passengers for 4 months. You tell yourself it's probably just a loose heat shield, but a small voice whispers that it could be the opening chapter of a catastrophic $1,000 conversation with a mechanic quietly, without you ever making a conscious, deliberate financial decision. Your brain initiates the internal negotiation. That leads right back to the starting line. The macroeconomic data surrounding this behavioral loop is brutal. A staggering 28% of all vehicle trade-ins right now carry negative equity. This means the owner owed significantly more on their current car than the vehicle was actually worth. And they deliberately chose to roll that toxic debt deficit directly into their brand new auto loan. They never actually crossed the finish line to hit absolute zero. They merely got close enough to see it before literally driving away from it. These individuals are now paying an average of $940 a month, a massive $140 above the already bloated industry baseline, purely because their dead vehicle's debt is stacked like a parasitic tumor on top of their new contract. Is perfectly legal for financial institutions to execute. Spiritually, it should require a strict cooling off period and a strongly worded intervention letter from someone who loves you. With the average trade-in occurring at just 3.7 years old on a 69-month loan, the typical consumer is actively restarting their entire debt cycle at month 44. The entire automotive dealership infrastructure is engineered around one core assumption: that the average human being can only tolerate the psychological freedom of a paid-off vehicle for approximately the lifespan of a single oil change before they willingly loop back into the system. It is brilliantly impressive in the exact same terrifying way a Venus flytrap is impressive, an elegant, beautiful design that results in a catastrophic outcome for whoever steps inside. Even among the disciplined minority who successfully navigate their balance all the way to absolute zero, many still treat it as a green light to inflate their lifestyle. This behavior explains why a shocking 36% of Americans earning well over $100,000 a year are still trapped living paycheck to paycheck. It is not because their income is too low to build real wealth. It is because every corporate raise, every annual bonus, and every single paid-off debt gets instantly converted into a brand new, ongoing monthly expense. Money will always find a destination. The only real question is whether you are the one actively directing its path. There is a deep psychological reason why this consumer auto loop is so incredibly difficult to sever: identity. Think back to the last time a colleague or a neighbor pulled into the driveway driving something brand new, and you experienced that sudden, subtle inner flicker. It isn't necessarily pure jealousy. It's more of a quiet, uncomfortable question about whether the machine you are currently driving still projects the right message about your status and success. That feeling is not an organic human accident. It is the carefully engineered byproduct of decades of high-budget automotive marketing doing exactly what it was designed to do in modern society. A vehicle has been systematically transformed from a basic tool of transportation into a loud social statement. A comprehensive survey by MarketWatch revealed a striking reality. 1 out of every 4 Americans is actively driving a car that sits completely beyond their actual budget, while 17% of surveyed drivers confirmed taking on a second job explicitly to afford their monthly vehicle payment. These individuals are sacrificing extra hours of their lives purely to maintain the outward appearance of success, all while the underlying payment actively drains their ability to build any real wealth. The legendary researcher Dr. Thomas Stanley spent decades meticulously studying the habits of actual millionaires, not individuals who simply project a wealthy lifestyle, but those who possess genuine net worth. His research revealed that a staggering 86% of all luxury vehicles are driven by non-millionaires. Furthermore, the median purchase price a true millionaire paid for their most recent vehicle sat at a modest $31,367. In households earning over $250,000 a year, 61% of them choose to drive everyday Toyotas, Hondas, and Fords. The individuals building real multi-generational wealth are not announcing their arrival through their monthly payment obligations. They are far too busy compounding their capital to bother performing success for strangers. So, the next time someone idles next to you in a brand new $75,000 truck, and you experience that evolutionary flicker of needing an upgrade, look at the cold statistics. There is an 86% probability that the driver is not a millionaire, and there is a 100% guarantee that they are locked into a massive monthly payment. That truck is not a signal that they have successfully made it. It is a loud signal that they fully believe the marketing campaign. Meanwhile, the actual millionaires are driving paid-off sedans. Quietly rooting capital into liquid brokerage. Accounts that don't feature a chrome grille you can shine. This brings us to the exact operational playbook, the sequential sequence of moves that separates the small minority who turn a car payoff into a massive wealth inflection point from the majority, who simply turn it into a down payment on a new lease. And there is a massive insurance loophole hiding inside this transition that almost no one talks about. When you carry an active auto loan, your commercial lender completely dictates your insurance parameters. They legally mandate full comprehensive and collision coverage with low deductibles because if you happen to total the machine, they want their capital back first. The exact second your loan balance hits zero, those rigid mandates completely vanish. You suddenly hold structural choices you did not possess yesterday. Full comprehensive coverage costs the average driver roughly $2,500 to $3,000 every single year.
Ow.
While standard liability-only coverage runs between $600 and $1,200. That represents a hidden pocket of potential savings. It's measuring between $800 and $1,800 annually, completely separate from your freed-up car payment. To navigate this transition, smart operators leverage the 10% insurance framework. If your annual comprehensive and collision premium exceeds 10% of your vehicle's total current market value, keeping those coverages is mathematically inefficient. For example, if you are driving a reliable vehicle worth $6,000, but you are paying $900 a year in comprehensive and collision premiums, you are surrendering a massive 15% of the asset's total value every 12 months to protect a machine that will net you a mere $5,500 if it gets totaled. A highly rational middle path is to drop collision entirely while maintaining comprehensive coverage, which is incredibly cheap and shelters you from theft, other damage or vandalism when you aren't in the vehicle, and raise your deductible to a clean $1,000. That single operational pivot can easily save you another $100 to $200 a month on top of your eliminated loan payment. Yet, historical data shows that only 8% of drivers have ever executed this basic insurance evaluation. The other 92% continue paying for lender-mandated coverage on a machine that doesn't have a lender anymore. Driven entirely by pure behavioral inertia, it is the exact economic equivalent of continuing to pay monthly rent on an apartment you already bought because you forgot to inform the landlord that you own the building. To lock this blueprint into reality, you must execute 3 specific automated steps. Specificity is the exact line separating a vague financial intention from a concrete wealth outcome. Step: intercept the capital before your brain spends it to must. Establish an automated electronic transfer for the exact dollar amount of your old car payment, routed directly to an intentional wealth asset on the exact same calendar day the money used to exit your account. Do not allow that cash to sit in your primary checking account for a 48-hour grace period. If you do, your brain will subconsciously spend it. Behavioral economics research is completely unambiguous. Individuals who automate the redirection of their capital sustain the wealth-building habit indefinitely. Conversely, individuals who attempt to manually transfer the funds every month completely lose the habit within an average of 90 days. Right around the timeline where a new vehicle model starts looking appealing, Step 2, liquidate predatory high-interest debt. Before you root a single dollar into the asset markets, you must violently eliminate any high-interest consumer liabilities. Attempting to root $700 a month into a standard brokerage account while carrying an $8,000 credit card balance compounding at 21% interest is technically labeled as investing, but mathematically it is identical to desperately bailing water out of a sinking boat while completely ignoring the massive hole in the hull. If you lack a solid cash defensive reserve, focus first on securing 3 months of actual living expenses, roughly $19,500 inside a protected high-yield savings account. This is the ironclad defense that prevents a routine $1,200 mechanical repair from mutating into a revolving credit card balance that haunts your household for years. Once that cash reserve is fully established, initiate an aggressive debt avalanche. Maintain minimum payments across your lower interest accounts, and slam your entire freed up $700 monthly surplus into the highest interest rate liability first. Adding an extra $700 a month to a standard $10,000 balance at 21%, interest completely obliterates the debt in just 15 months, saving you nearly $2,700 in pure interest. Capital that remains inside your net worth forever. Step 3. Automate. Boring. Consistent wealth creation. Once your consumer liabilities are completely flatlined, invest the remainder with absolute consistency. First, contribute the exact amount required to capture your employer's full 401k matching contribution. That represents an immediate, risk-free 50% to 100% day one return on your capital that no index fund on earth can replicate. Next, if you fall within the income eligibility thresholds, maximize your automated Roth IRA contributions utilizing the strict 2026 annual limit of $7,500 or $8,500 if you are age 50 or older to secure total tax-free compound growth and tax-free retirement distributions. Finally, route any remaining monthly surplus into a standard taxable brokerage account. Purchasing ultra-low-cost, broad-market index funds through completely automated contributions. You are not trying to be clever or time the market. You are playing a game of pure consistency. The entire core of the vehicle game is simple. Do not rush to replace an asset that functions perfectly. Modern automobiles are structurally engineered to last between 200,000 and 300,000 miles if you simply execute basic routine maintenance. In fact, the average age of a vehicle active on American roads has climbed to a historic record of nearly 13 years old. A paid-off vehicle does not suddenly become less reliable the morning after your final loan contract terminates. It simply becomes infinitely cheaper to operate. You face zero loan payments, significantly lower insurance premiums, and an average annual maintenance and repair budget of $800 to $1,200 per year, contrasted against paying that exact same $800 every single month to a lender. While driving that paid-off machine, establish a dedicated car replacement fund and route a modest $200 a month into it. Over a 5-year window, that account builds to $12,000. Over 7 years, it scales past $16,800 before market interest. When you eventually add the trade-in value of your current vehicle to that liquid cash reserve, you possess the power to buy your next car completely in cash. The wealth-draining debt loop never starts again. Let's close on a reality that has absolutely nothing to do with mathematics, because the math is the effortless part of this entire equation. The far more difficult challenge is navigating the intense social pressure of driving an aging, paid-off vehicle in a culture that treats your car as the ultimate baseline statement of your identity as a human being. The individual driving the paid-off car while their investment portfolio compounds quietly wakes up one morning and realizes a profound truth. They possess the liquid power to quit. Not in a dramatic, disruptive fashion, but in a quiet, unshakable way. They possess the operational runway to accept a lower-paying role at a company they actually respect. They can comfortably take 3 full months between corporate transitions. Without their household spiraling into a financial crisis, they can calmly tell an unreasonable employer no without lying awake at 2 a.m., calculating exactly how many weeks their checking account will hold out. Your vehicle's exterior profile cannot announce any of that systemic power to the world. But that quiet position of strength is exactly what real financial freedom feels like. True freedom is not the brand new luxury truck parked in the driveway. It is the array of unshakable life options you possess that absolutely no one can see from the road. The individual idling next to you in the latest facelifted model is not outperforming you in the game of life. They are simply financing a completely different set of behavioral choices. Their massive monthly payment legally mandates their corporate income every single consecutive month. Regardless of whether their career, their health, or their mental well-being aligns with that schedule. You are not looking at an individual who successfully jumped further ahead. You are looking at someone with drastically less personal freedom who willingly bought the temporary appearance of more at the end of the day. Real-world options are Never purchased with a larger corporate paycheck, they are purchased by maintaining a smaller monthly structural obligation. That is the fundamental truth the $75,000 truck brochure will never print. Those are the terms the finance manager will never disclose. So, when you finally log into your banking account and see that vehicle balance hit absolute zero, do not. Refresh the web page and start browsing dealership inventories. Execute the boring choice. Establish your automated investment transfer before the week draws to a close. Continue driving that paid-off vehicle with pride and allow the rising balance in your investment portfolio to quietly become the most meaningful number in your financial life. Even though absolutely no one will ever see that number from the highway, that is where the real, permanent victory is won. It is never found in the initial payoff. It is forged entirely in the 30 days after. If this structural breakdown exposed the hidden loops of the debt system today, hit that like button to help this data reach more families who need to run these calculations. Subscribe to the channel right now if you haven't already, because we methodically dissect these exact everyday decisions. The choices that look completely ordinary in the moment, but look absolutely monumental 20 years down the road. I am not a licensed financial advisor, and nothing contained within this breakdown constitutes formal financial advice. These are simply the clear, unshakable structural patterns that consistently show up in the lives of individuals who end up with real-world options versus those who end up completely without them.